Hi everyone, I'm Sam from the ExpensePlus team, and I'm going to be leading us through today's session. We're going to cover two main things. We are going to cover how to manage key financial tasks using the streamlined process flow within ExpensePlus. And we're also going to cover how the task management module can be used to assign, track, and manage tasks effectively. So as we go through this, I'll try and explain how each of the key tasks what they are. I'll try and cover how you can manage them effectively, but also suggest a frequency that you may wish to adopt for your church or charity. However, that comes with a big caveat that no two churches and charities are the same. And so you may choose to do something different to what I suggest. And the great news is you absolutely can do that. The process flow in Expense Plus is designed to be customizable and is designed around what you prefer to do for your church or charity. Now, hopefully, you'll have seen this version of the dashboard that I'm showing you at the moment. This shows you kind of the main process flow inside Expense Plus. I'm going to mention some other reports and modules that you need to be considering when kind of performing your kind of financial tasks. But this kind of covers the main streamlined process flow within Expense Plus. So as you get started with Expense Plus, we'd highly recommend that you do start with this dashboard screen. And we're going to start today by talking through briefly the kind of different tasks and the process flow inside these four red boxes, which are the essentially the purchases, approvals, and payments modules. I am not going to cover these in detail. So if you haven't seen these before, or you would like to find out more, then we do run lots of other brilliant lunch and learn training sessions, which you can find on our training page. And specifically for what I'm about to cover in about 3 or 4 minutes, you can join this streamlined expenses and payments session, which covers what we're about to cover really quickly. It covers it in a much more detailed session. So please do feel free to book onto other sessions. I'm not trying to cover these, what we're going to go through today in detail, but hopefully you'll find it helpful. Now, for most of you, you should hopefully know this already. The first step in this process flow is the entering of purchases. And essentially, this step in the process flow inside Expense Plus removes the need for staff to fill out paper-based forms and for you then to have to sit there and manually enter the data off of paper-based forms to create accounts. It means staff and volunteers can submit expenses from anywhere, which is going to save money and time because you're not going to have printing of forms and filing of and printing of receipts and invoices. It's all digital. Staff can view past receipts and where expenses are up to. So we're inside this screen. We can see and hover over these different status icons to see and answer our own questions. So we're not having to go and ask the person that's processing kind of expenses, why have I not been paid for this? We can see that ourselves inside this screen, which makes it really super efficient. Now, purchases are best if they're entered within a few days of the purchase happening. And why do we recommend that? Well, for invoices, it means that suppliers are going to get paid back in a timely way, and the suppliers for your church and charity are going to want to get paid back in a timely way. It means if you have debit or credit cards in the organization's name, it means that when you come to do bank reconciliation, those card purchases will have already been entered. And again, that's more efficient for you guys. In our experience, where purchases are entered in a timely way, also far less receipts get lost. So I don't know about you guys, but if I keep a receipt in my wallet for a month, the chances are it's not going to be there in a month's time. Whereas if I enter purchases straight away, then actually I'm far more likely to have the receipt rather than to lose the receipt. And it also means that expenditure shows up in your reports straight away and avoids the situation that some churches and charities have, where they're looking at their financial reports, everything's looking pretty and beautiful and wonderful, and then someone in the team just pops up and has £500 worth of expenses that they've just been keeping in their back pocket. And so essentially, you've been reviewing reports that haven't been correct. So for all of these reasons, we recommend that purchases are entered in a timely way. And if you don't already have one, this is where I'm going to refer you to our blog. We've written a blog article. This also works for charities as well. We give you a couple of example policies. We'd recommend if you don't have a purchasing policy for your church or charity, you consider downloading our free template and customizing it for your church or charity. It basically sets out the expectations for people that are making purchases on behalf of your charity as to what you're expecting in terms of them entering purchases in a timely way and also providing receipts, both of which they need to do. And it just helps remove some of that confusion around what is needed. To enable this, you need to give your users access, and we deliberately don't charge per user inside Expense Plus because Expense Plus works best if each user that is making purchases is able to submit their own purchases in Expense Plus. And don't worry, they're not going to see, other users are not going to see what you see. They're not going to get a really nice sidebar menu with hundreds of options on it. They will literally, if you give them the right level of access, just be able to enter purchases, and that is it. They'll just be able to record purchases. And to be honest, you can also control which options they get. So for most users, when they sign into Expense Plus, they just get this red screen. There's one option of expense claim, and they can just enter those purchases. They can use a phone, a tablet, a computer to do so. It's really quick and easy for them. Let's just take a look at that. So if we're going to enter an expense claim, we're going to pretend that we went to Tesco this morning. I type in Tesco. I'm going to select the fund, but for most users, this will be selected for them because they'll only have access to the one fund. I'm going to select the category. I'm going to type in kids. I'm going to pick the category I need. I'm going to come here and I'm going to pretend that I bought a laminator. I'm going to enter my amount, £26.90, and that's it. It literally takes seconds to enter a purchase. And I'd personally argue if someone's able to make a purchase, they probably are capable of entering a purchase. So whilst you can enter on behalf of other people, we would typically recommend that you get the people making purchases to enter themselves. It's quicker and efficient, more efficient for them. It saves you from having to do extra work in addition to them kind of having to provide the details and the receipts. And it's going to mean that your process flow is nice and super streamlined. Okay, so hopefully that does make sense. So how do we go ahead and submit this purchase? We just click submit. There are 3 ways to provide a receipt. If we wanted to, we could have uploaded a receipt. If we're on a phone or tablet, we could have taken a photo of the receipt as part of this process flow, or I'm going to click submit and I'm going to tell Expense Plus I'm going to email the receipt. I'm going to pretend I'm going to do it now. I'm going to upload. Oh, that's the wrong option. Sorry, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to email the receipt. I click here and then Expense Plus is going to submit the receipt for me. This is something that wasn't meant to appear, but it does anyway. If you ever submit a purchase for the same supplier with the same amount within the kind of similar date range, it will always ask you if it's a duplicate. Again, a really helpful thing for avoiding you from submitting kind of duplicate purchases or paying people back twice. There's a nifty feature there that I wasn't expected to show you, but it appeared anyway. So hopefully you're familiar with this kind of entering of purchases. It's not just for expense claims, it's for invoices, gifts of money, business card purchases, mileage claims, etc. And in terms of having an efficient process flow, what we would suggest is people enter purchases in a lifetime way. You have a purchasing policy which specifies what your expectations are, and you give users access to do this themselves. Let's go back to the dashboard then and look at the process flow. In terms of a streamlined process flow, the next step we're going to talk about is checking receipts. And I'm, again, only going to spend a few moments talking about this. So check receipts for most organizations is done by someone in the finance team, and it's typically done weekly. It's super quick to check receipts. You simply click check uploaded. You see a copy of the receipt, and all you're doing is saying, is this readable? I.e., is it not blurry? Can I read it? Yes, I can. And is it the right purchase that this has been submitted for? Assuming the answer is yes to that, you click accept, the next one appears. It's a minimal, very quick, super quick check because you don't want to get to year end and find that you've got a whole load of receipts that are invalid and your independent examiner is not happy with you. And so it's a super quick check. Most organizations, we would recommend do this weekly. You can do it more frequently if you would like. Weekly, though, provides a good balance between efficiency and not making people wait too long to get paid back. So that's essentially the balance that you're going for. And weekly for most organizations works really well. In terms of the next step in the process flow, approvals, if you have this module enabled, it is possible to disable it. Then approvals are going to basically happen automatically. So when you set up Expense Plus and you set up your categories, you determine who the approver is for the different categories that you have. And those approvers, whilst they can see what they need to approve inside this screen, I can see that I need to approve these 3 purchases. Approvers get sent a morning email at 7 a.m. where they can just click the button to approve all of those purchases in a single click. So approvals is highly automated. If they don't approve those purchases, then they're going to get an email the day after asking them to approve. And so in terms of needing to keep track of this step, there's no need to do that because approvers are basically going to keep getting bugged until they actually do the thing that you have what the email's asking them to do, which is to approve the purchases that are assigned to their budget category. Now, you can customize the approvals module. This is not the session that I'm going to talk you through how to do that. We would recommend leaving approvals on and allowing budget holders to be able to approve all of the purchases that are for their budget. The great thing about this is that it kind of acts as a both approval of the purchase, i.e., are we happy with £95.78 being spent on kids and youth resources, but it also provides a brilliant reporting check-in for your approver, because they also get to see how much has been spent from a particular budget in live time. So you're actually getting your budget approvers to engage with what they're spending from their budgets. And so we'd highly recommend that you do actually leave approvals turned on, because inadvertently you're kind of killing two birds with one stone by using this digital approvals process flow. Again, super streamlined, no bits of paper, no kind of hanging around, just a morning email which approvers can click approval, and you've got yourself a streamlined process flow. The next thing is payments. And again, a bit like receipt checks, typically this is done weekly. As we come to this screen, you can see everything that needs to be approved. Things for the same person are automatically grouped together, and essentially it's really quick and easy to set up payments. If you're with NatWest Bankline, Unity, or Virgin Bank, you can even download a payments file here, which will appear just where I'm hovering my mouse, which will allow you to basically upload that in one click to your online banking. If you're with other banks, then we've got one-click copy functionality, which makes it really quick and easy to copy the payments that need to be set up into your online banking. So for most organizations, this is done weekly. Again, you're trying to get that balance between efficiency and not making people wait too long. So if you did your receipt check, say on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and you did your payments on, say, a Thursday or a Friday, then it means the maximum anyone could wait if they submitted a purchase the second that you'd finished making the payments the week before would be just over a week. And the average that people would wait would be 4 or 5 days, which is really reasonable. And so for most charities and churches, that's what they do. They have a weekly receipt check, typically on a Tuesday, Wednesday, a weekly payments maybe on a Thursday, Friday, just allowing a little gap between those two things for approvals to happen. If you have dual authorization on your online banking, then you'll see two tables on this screen which mirror that. And there's a really, again, efficient button you can click here. Once you've finished setting up the payments, you can click this button here, email payment authorizers. We automatically then email the people that need to do your payment authorization, so that they just get that notification. They know to sign in and to do the authorization. So again, helping you streamline the process flow. So if we go back to the dashboard then, just to mention, these four steps are a bit like buckets. So purchases move through these kind of buckets or stage gates as the different steps are completed. You can expedite things through this process flow. So if you had someone saying, I need this invoice paid, it was meant to be paid last week, it's my fault, but can we please pay it? Then the answer can be yes. But if you can go ahead and enter it, 30 seconds later, I'll check the receipt. I'll approve on behalf of Bob because he's not here this week. And then a minute later, it'll be on my payment screen. And yes, then I'll make payments. So we would recommend, feel free to expedite things through this process flow. Feel free to set the frequency you would like to do the steps in this process flow. We would just say probably don't try and set up payments and then retrospectively enter them through this process flow. It's going to take you much more time. It's going to lead to issues. And yeah, it's going to basically create a parallel process flow to the one here. So feel free to expedite things, but you don't want to be setting up payments that kind of work around this process flow and you catch up later. If you want to find out more about how ExpensePlus can be customized and how you can customize user access, I've already alluded to the fact that you want to be setting up your different people in your team with access. Then we do run a brilliant lunch and learn session. So on our training page, you'll find all of our different lunch and learn sessions. The one that specifically covers customization and kind of how you set up users is this one. You can either book onto the session, which isn't until next year, or you can just watch a really recent recording by clicking on this click here button here to watch a recent recording. So hopefully that makes sense. In a moment, we are going to look at bank reconciliation, which is the next kind of main step in this process flow. But before we do that, we're just going to briefly talk about creating invoices and recording bank deposits. And now both of these kind of things, they link to the bank reconciliation module, which is why I'm briefly covering them. But in truth, they're done as required. So if you've got someone to invoice, maybe someone's just booked to use one of your rooms, you want to send them an invoice, you would come to this module and do that at this point. The only time that you would probably come to this module on a recurring basis would probably be maybe every week or every month, just to check in terms of, do you need to follow up any customers to ask them to pay you, or maybe send an invoice reminder, which you can just do at the click of a button using this email button. Otherwise, you're coming to this module to set up customer invoices when they're needed. So you can create invoices really easily. You can create it from scratch. You can create from template. You can create from an existing. So it's really streamlined in terms of creating invoices. You can also connect the invoicing module to Stripe to allow customers to pay you via card payment, which will make your process flow even more streamlined. But essentially, this module's here. You would use it as required, if required, and it's really straightforward to use for when you need it. If you've got any more questions, I can cover them at the end, so please do put any questions you have in the Zoom chat. As mentioned, this is not meant to be a detailed training on all of the different modules. It's meant to be covering the different kind of key tasks that you need to be thinking about and when you need to be thinking about them. If you want more detailed training, do go to the training page on our website and you'll find detailed training on all of the things that I'm talking about here. The other thing before we look at bank reconciliation that I'm going to talk about is recording bank deposits. Again, this is trying to help you streamline your process flow and avoid the need for you to have to write all of your cash and checks on a paper-based form or in a spreadsheet before you take them to the bank, and then to have to key all of that information in once you've banked that money. Again, this just allows you to, whoever's counting the offering or the money that's going to go to the bank, it allows them to record it at this point. They can record the details of what's being banked. They can record the different kind of incomes within that, and then record it as they're counting the money. And then when you're doing your bank reconciliation, you can simply reconcile this without having to, again, go and re-enter all the data at that point. So this is what this module is about. I'm not going to, again, cover it in any more detail, but it's streamlined in the fact that it removes the need for you to have to record the data in one place and then key that data in to create your accounts. So let's look then at the bank reconciliation module inside ExpensePlus. So this is bank match transactions inside here. And in terms of this process flow for this module, again, there's a whole detailed training session that covers this in great detail. There's essentially two stages. The first stage is to upload your transactions, and the second stage is to reconcile your transactions. Now, this process flow is super streamlined in itself, but it's also super streamlined because, as mentioned, all of the things that I've mentioned up until now in this training session automatically are feeding in to this module. And when ExpensePlus gets hold of those bank transactions, it kind of knows what most of those transactions are for you without you needing to manually key in data as you might have to do with other software, or if you've been using a spreadsheet up until now. Now, the first step of this process flow, as I mentioned, was uploading your transactions. If you connect to open banking, which we would highly recommend, and it's now offered by many of the kind of major providers, then you will have an automated feed of your transactions into ExpensePlus. And this will happen multiple times a day. It doesn't mean you need to do bank reconciliation multiple times a day, but it means those transactions are being brought in for you. It's removing the need for you to do it manually. It's removing any possibility of kind of error because they're just coming through based on what is appearing on your bank account. So we would highly recommend that you do connect to open banking and allow your transactions to come in automatically. In terms of the second stage of this process flow, which is reconciling transactions, I'm going to briefly cover what this looks like. Hopefully, again, for most of you, you'll already be aware of this. Now, in terms of how frequently you reconcile transactions, this is up to you. If you've got open banking connected, then probably you're going to want to reconcile at least weekly. It's up to you, though. Again, it comes down to efficiency versus whether you want to kind of how up to date you want your financial reports. And so I'd probably recommend weekly would be a good frequency to do this. If you're a smaller charity or you don't have open banking set up, maybe monthly would be a better frequency. If you're a large charity, maybe you'd do this twice a week. So the frequency is probably dependent on the number of transactions, your availability, how much time you have, all of that sort of thing will play into the mix. So how do you reconcile transactions? Again, this is like a bucket. So if you don't reconcile transactions for a month, you're going to have a lot more to reconcile than if you reconcile each week, but that's not a massive problem. It's up to you to decide the frequency. Bank matching is made up of essentially three parts, as it were. The first part is quick matching recurring transactions. So ExpensePlus remembers your recurring transactions, your donations that come in, and allows you to very quickly reconcile those transactions. And similarly, for outgoing standing orders and direct debits, you can reconcile at literally. That's kind of stage one. Stage two is then to reconcile your other transactions. But if you've been generating invoices inside ExpensePlus, recording bank deposits, processing things through the expenses, approvals, and payments process flow, then those things are going to be sitting on the right-hand table, waiting for your bank transactions to appear in your bank account. So here we've got an incoming amount on our bank transaction. A bank transaction for this amount, it's gone ahead and found the corresponding invoice. We can do the same for this invoice payment coming in. Next one that comes in, we can just match it across This is a bank deposit. Again, it's been recorded into ExpensePlus. The next one looks like it's an invoice payment to a supplier. Again, it's gone through the process flow that we've talked about. And so this leads to a really efficient bank reconciliation process flow where we can just go and reconcile transactions at the click of a button. Stage 3 is those annoying transactions that don't do either of those two things that I've just mentioned. Typically, there'll be 1 or 2% of your transactions, unless you're in month 1, in which case you will have to do much more manual matching just for that first month whilst ExpensePlus learns about your transactions. But this final stage is not hard either. For the 1 or 2% of transactions you need to add, really quick and easy, just to click on a transaction, to add transactions, to add the basic details, click confirm. And so again, this process flow is really streamlined. I'm just going to check my notes. I think I've covered everything that I was planning to in here. Yeah, in terms of how frequently you reconcile transactions, that is ultimately up to you. We would recommend you have open banking set up and to consider the frequency based on how up to date you want your financial reports to be. So now we're going to move on to some of the other things that we would recommend that you do probably on a monthly basis. Again, this is dependent on your context, dependent on your charity, depending on what you're trying to do. But we would recommend these following things. The next one I'm going to talk about is gift aid. So gift aid inside ExpensePlus, if you are not already aware, ExpensePlus automatically allows you to submit gift aid claims to HMRC without having to kind of download data and go via the HMRC portal. You can simply connect to HMRC. To do that, you just go to settings and you can come in and connect to HMRC. This organization is already connected. Really quick and easy to do that. And then you can generate gift aid claims and submit them to HMRC at the click of a button. So this is worth knowing because if you may previously have done gift aid, for example, on a quarterly basis or an annual basis because it was a bit of a faff. Inside ExpensePlus, that's not true. Claiming gift aid is really quick and easy. So you might want to consider your frequency of claiming gift aid. And for many churches and charities, they do this monthly. Why do they do it monthly? Well, they get paid the money quicker, but it also means in terms of financial reporting, it kind of smooths out the big lumps you get if you kind of claim gift aid very infrequently. And I guess the process flow is so streamlined that actually in some ways there's no reason not to claim gift aid monthly. How do you create a claim then? So if I want to create a claim for this particular fund in this particular financial year, I can come in here and I can give my claim a name. It's up to you what you call your name claim. You can claim up to a particular date. So if I just wanted to create a claim for up to a certain particular point, I can set a date in here, and then literally when I'm ready, I can just come create gift aid claim, and then essentially, oh, I've not finished doing this one, but essentially once you've given it a name up here, you can then click create gift aid claim. You can click submit to HMRC, and then HMRC will pay you the money typically within 5 to 10 days after you submit the claim. So creating claims is super quick and easy, and therefore you need to have this as part of your kind of like schedule. We'll talk in a moment as we look inside the task management module as to how you kind of might set yourself up a task to remind you to do this. But for most churches and charities, I would recommend monthly is a good frequency to do. You can obviously vary it from that, and different churches and charities do so. If you happen to be using Church Suite and instead of claiming gift aid inside ExpensePlus, you're wanting to claim inside Church Suite, then this task essentially gets replaced by a different one, which is to use the Church Suite export feature in ExpensePlus to export your donations data into Church Suite and to claim from inside Church Suite. And so hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any questions, then feel free to ask and I will cover the questions at the end. So firstly, each month I'd be recommending that you create your gift aid claims. The other task that I'd recommend that you do each month is inside the adjustment screen, which you can get to in the sidebar menu here, or you can also get to if you were on the dashboard, you can just click this add adjustments here. Now, if you create accounts on an accruals basis, you will get to see this section up here, which is called creditors and debtors. If you create accounts on a simplified receipts and payments basis, then you won't see this section. So just to bear in mind that this screen will look different depending on which accounting basis you use. However, it's probably still worth coming into this module to just ask yourself the question, is there anything that I need to check or anything that I need to do? I'm very briefly going to cover these 3 different sections inside the adjustments module, but note only 2 sections if you work on a receipts and payments basis. Now, if you work on an accruals basis, there's a brilliant feature in the background of Expense Plus called auto accruals, which removes the need for you to have to go and create manual accruals or prepayments, or deferrals inside Expense Plus. You don't need to do that, maybe except for at year end. So the need to kind of come and manually add any kind of creditor or debtor adjustments each month is typically minimal or not at all. However, it's important if you are using accruals as your accounting basis to check that all of the auto accruals are correct, because Expense Plus is going to sit there auto accruing things for you, which works brilliantly unless you don't do things correctly. And what I mean by that, or I'll explain what I mean by that now. So if we go into accounts receivable, you'll see that there's a number of different kind of accounts receivable adjustments here, and you'll notice there's no buttons to the right hand side of them. That is because these have been auto accrued, which means that when we created these customer invoices, and the bottom one's a credit note, Expense Plus automatically accrued the income to the period it relates to. And that's brilliant, and that's exactly what we needed it to do. And when these customers pay us, it will automatically reverse out these auto accruals so that we're not showing on our balance sheet as this money being owed into our charity, and it will work perfectly in the background just like it's meant to. The problem comes is if we start to see any invoices that we've created, for example, that are from 6 months ago or 9 months ago, we need to start thinking about what we're going to do with those. I mean, really, we need to start thinking about what we're going to do with that sooner. So what this is highlighting is we've got a number of invoices outstanding. When we check this on a monthly basis, this might cause us to go, actually, we need to get in contact with these people. Or maybe we just need to click email invoice and just send this invoice again to this customer. Maybe they've not spotted it and they need to pay us, or maybe we need to phone them up because it's now been 31 days overdue. So the check of the kind of creditors and debtors in terms of accounts receivable probably is going to prompt you to go to your invoicing module and to maybe think about what you need to do with chasing up those customers that haven't paid you. And so that's for the first part of it. The other thing I'd be checking is accounts payable. And again, all of these things that are showing here, none of them have buttons. They've not been manually added. They've been auto accrued, which means that when someone's entered an expense claim or an invoice, Expense Plus has gone, great, I'll include that expenditure where it should be, and I'll automatically on your balance sheet and inside this screen show that that money's due out. And that's great as long as the money actually ultimately does go out and we can reconcile it. But what if we entered this, and what if it's a duplicate? What if we've maybe forgotten to pay it from our bank account, or maybe it's a duplicate? And so again, we want to be reviewing this and saying, are these okay? Like, some of them are dated quite long ago, and so are they okay that we haven't paid them, or have we paid them? And in which case this is a duplicate. So looking at your creditors and debtors will just allow you to basically ask the question, have I made any mistakes? Because we don't want things ultimately forever living as accounts receivable, i.e. money we're due, that's due into us, or accounts payable, money we owe, if it's not actually the case. And so checking the adjustment screen is important, and they are typically the two things that I would be checking in terms of creditors and debtors. You also might want to check any prepayments or deferred income if you've added any of those adjustments, just to make sure again they're still valid, that this correct, that they're showing on your balance sheet. So in terms of adjustments, I'd be looking at that. In terms of category transfers, on a monthly basis, I personally would just be looking and saying, am I okay with what category transfers are showing, and do I need to add any other ones? So here's a category transfer here for cross-charging essentially software costs to our food bank project, and taking £200 from our food bank project to kind of cover some of the software and licenses costs that have been covered from our general fund. And so for me, this looks fine. It looks like a great way to do this, that Food Bank have agreed to pay £200 towards software and licenses, and this is the category transfer that represents that. So I'm happy with this. So you're probably asking the question inside the screen, am I okay with it? And are there any others that I need to be adding? And so this is category transfers. In terms of fund transfers, these, you won't often do these, but for example, if there's been a trustees meeting and the trustees have agreed to move an extra 5k into the reserves fund, again, I'm just checking this. Yep, it's been added. That's great. I'm okay with that. Are there any others that need to be added? And so as you're doing this check of the adjustments each month, these are the things that I personally would be looking at inside adjustments, just to make sure I'm happy with. Do note that if you work on a receipts and payments basis, the first part of this is not relevant for your organization. In fact, won't show on this screen. The next thing I'm going to recommend that you would do monthly, or at least monthly, would be to review your finance reports. And I'm going to show you what I would do. Again, you may do something slightly different to this, and that is okay. So when we go to our finance reports, I'm going to be looking at three main reports. I'm going to be looking at our summary by fund. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is looking at this report. Before everyone else in the charity sees it, I want to make sure that I'm happy with it. I'm going to select the end date to be the end of September. We're going to pretend that's where I'm viewing this up to. And I'm looking for a few things. Firstly, I'm looking to see that nothing has been recorded against my kind of Z to be recoded category. So for most organizations, they will have one of these categories. Personally, I'd recommend calling it Z to be recoded, not calling it other, because otherwise you'll find that people park a lot of other income and other expenditure in these categories where it's not really where it should be. And so in this example organization, they've called it Z transactions to be recoded. So that's very helpful. And one of the things I'm doing as I'm reviewing this report is I'm just checking there's nothing in there, and there's £15 that's been allocated here. I would be clicking on that. I'd be trying to work out where it should have actually been allocated, as opposed to being put in this sort of dumping ground of I'll figure out where it goes later. So that's one of the things I'll be looking at on my financial reports. Another thing that I'd be looking at is I'd be looking at my income up here, and I'd be saying, does any of this look like restricted income? Because I'm currently inside my unrestricted general fund. So is there any grants in here that I can see? Is there any kind of specific, repair of the roof where people have given donations for a specific purpose, where probably those are going to be restricted? They shouldn't be coming into my general fund. And so again, I'm just checking that and checking I'm happy with this. I'm also looking for any variances, and it's up to you how you look at variances. I personally would look at them at a category group level, not at individual categories, although that might be the right thing to do. And I'm looking for any variances, because if you do this every month, you're going to avoid things going bad before they go bad. You can see variance to date, which is helpful. So you can see where you budgeted to be versus where you're actually, and you can see variance to date. You can switch to showing it as an amount if you prefer, where you can see a kind of variance to date up here, and you can see if there's any problems, anything you might want to follow up on. You can also see the total budget for the year, the budget, the amount that's kind of the percentage of that that's either been received or spent, and also see a projected total as well. So you should really want to be looking down this before everyone else in your organization does, just to make sure you're happy, you're comfortable. If there is a variance, that you've investigated it to make sure it's not that things have been recorded against the wrong categories, or if it's genuine kind of understanding what is going on behind that, so that you can help other people understand what's going on. So you want to be looking at this. Otherwise, essentially, other people might come back with questions, and you might feel a little bit silly because things have just been coded to the wrong place, etc. So I would recommend that you do look at this report as the first kind of report that you review. You might want to do this for all funds. You definitely probably want to do it for your general fund, and to be doing that on a monthly basis. If this was me, the next report I'd be looking at my balance sheet. If this is only relevant, by the way, if you work on an accruals basis, but if you work on an accruals basis, you want to be looking at your balance sheet and saying, are you okay with this balance sheet? Now, we're looking for all funds, and I'm just wanting to check that things are as expected. A great way to do this actually is to use the monthly version of this report, because it will actually show you how your different asset and liability lines on this sheet, on the balance sheet, have changed. So, for example, I can see that from the start of the year, this was our cash. And actually, we can see by the end of September, our cash is here. So we can see that we've increased by about 5k cash. It just allows you this version of the balance sheet just to see what's going on. Again, we're asking the question, are we happy? Now, we've actually already looked at the accounts receivable, so we do know what that is. We know we've got those 3 invoices that we probably need to chase up, and we know what that is. We're just working down here saying, are we okay with this? Yep, our fixed assets, they're going to be fine. We looked at them at last year end. Investments haven't changed. Accounts payable, we just looked at when we looked at the creditors and debtors screen. We've got some deferred income. We might want to go and have a look at that. Yeah, we've got a long-term mortgage sitting here, and so essentially we're checking our balance sheet. I would recommend again that you do this as part of kind of your monthly checks if you work on an accruals basis. The other report that's quite helpful is the fund movement summary, because whilst we might not want to individually go and check every single fund, the income expenditure, although probably someone should be on a fairly periodic basis, this report is going to show us what's happening in terms as a whole, in terms of our different funds, our income, our expenditure, and our closing balances. So on this report, we're checking to see that things look like we would expect them to. So one thing we noticed is that our building project has got absolutely no expenditure year to date, and that might cause us to ask the question, have we wrongly coded the expenditure to our general fund? And actually there's some expenditure that should really be allocated to this building project that relates to that building project that we need to reallocate. So it might ask us that, it might help ask that question. It might actually help us ask, well, if we're not spending money from this fund, is that going to change at some point, or do we need to do something about that? because otherwise this fund is going to sit there forever with money in it. You might also want to be looking at how fast the fund is decreasing and maybe come up with a bit of a plan for, okay, this grant is going to run out in 3 months. How are we going to cover the costs now when we don't have any kind of money in that fund left? Is it we're going to apply for more grants, or is it that we're going to start coding the expenditure from a different fund? And you're also checking to see that none of your fund balances are negative. So these are some of the things that you should be doing. Kind of in terms of reviewing your financial reports. Obviously, you may do something different to what I've just said. These are some of the basics that I think that I would be doing for my church or charity. Now, in terms of sending out a finance summary, probably most of you will be involved in sending out kind of some sort of report to the trustees or to the finance team, depending on your context, and that's great. What I personally would recommend is that you send links to the reports in ExpensePlus and give users access. The reason for that is then they'll be able to view lifetime reports. It will help them get more engaged with the finances for your church or charity. It will mean that you don't have to put as much detail in the summaries that you send out because people can go and take a look for themselves. And it means, yeah, things are not out of date as well. So whilst you can download the different reports I've talked through, or whichever reports you want to send out, typically I'd recommend that instead of doing that, you make sure that this report is to where you need it to be. So maybe to the end of September. And then you just copy the link up here, the URL. If the person you send it to has access to ExpensePlus, they can click on that link. It will take them into this screen. Obviously, they'll need to log in on the way through, and then they'll be able to see the data as well. And the great thing about this is rather than it being a flat report, if they've got access, they can then drill down and have a look at the data that they need to. So for most churches and charities, rather than sending out a whacking great email with loads of attachments, what they would typically do is essentially add a very brief summary of kind of where income's at, where expenditure's at, where the fund balances are at, with links to the different reports so people can go and find out more information if they need. In reporting, typically like less is more. Because if you send someone like a really long email of 3 pages with 26 attachments, chances are your average person's not going to read it. And so again, there's this balance between giving people loads of information and actually giving people less information, but actually they're more likely to do something with that information. I hope that's been a bit helpful. There are lots and lots of reports inside ExpensePlus, which we do not have time to cover, but there is 2 brilliant training sessions, one called Exploring Key Financial Reports, one called Advanced Financial Reporting. And so if you want to find out more about financial reports, then those are the sessions to book onto. But as part of your monthly tasks, as well as you reviewing the finances, obviously for most churches or charities, there would also be a sending out or a meeting or a sharing of that financial information, which we're suggesting is done best if you give people access. You can customize people's access. And so, for example, as we looked at the income and expenditure by fund report, we got to see everything. We were able to drill down on anything we liked. You can set up users access to control which categories they can see, to control whether they can drill down into to see the transactional detail. You can hide donor names for specific users if you want to, so that they can drill down, but they can't see who's given, for example. So all of those features are available inside the kind of user customization part of ExpensePlus, so that you can give each person access to the reports that they need to see. And it's also worth mentioning, we're not going to cover it now, but there's a whole suite of donation reports as well as finance reports. And it might be for your organization that you do want to send out a bit of a summary of, for example, of what's happening with your donors across each of the months in the financial year. It's up to you what you decide to share. The reports are there, so it's figuring out what is going to be most useful for the people that need to get the information you're sharing. Some other monthly tasks that you may wish to consider, and we've landed in the right place to do these. There's a few reports that I personally would be looking at each month, and I'll take you through these briefly now. The first one is new donors to contact. So ExpensePlus keeps track of who your new donors are, how much they've given, whether they've given since, and also whether they've filled out a gift aid declaration. So personally, I would be putting this on your monthly task list to come and look at who your new givers are. And once you've followed up with them, then to mark them as followed up complete. Now, the reason for this is because for lots of churches and charities, they don't necessarily contact people when they start giving. Maybe someone sets up a standing order. And as a giver, that can often make them feel like, is my gift even being received? Does this charity even care? And so we would recommend that you do contact new donors. How you do that is up to you. So the church that I'm part of might, for example, send a card with a gift aid declaration as well attached. It's up to you. That's a great, so thanking them and also asking whether they can complete a gift aid declaration, for me is a brilliant sandwich of things to give people, because they know then that the donation's being received. And actually, in terms of gift aid efficiency, it gives you a great chance up front to try and get a gift aid declaration from the donor. It's up to you how you do the follow-up, but personally, I'd recommend that this is one of the things that you do each month to make sure that you're doing a good job of letting donors know that you appreciate their giving and that it's being received, and ideally giving a gift aid form if they are able to. The other report that I'd be looking at each month is this one, which is donors without gift aid declarations. And what this report is doing is it's looking and saying, look, these are your active donors that don't currently have gift aid declarations. This is the amount that they've given in the last 4 years. And if you could get that donor to complete a backdated gift aid declaration, ticking that box that says all donations that I've given in the last 4 years, then this is the amount of gift aid that you could get from HMRC. And so again, we would recommend that you set aside 10, 15 minutes or however many minutes you need each month to go through this list and make sure you're following up with donors. You can add comments when donors give you comments. You can tell ExpensePlus to set a next review date, i.e. this donor said no for now, but please contact me again in a year. You can do that and make them disappear from this list. But we'd highly recommend you use this. You could probably earn or gain your charity quite a lot of additional income just by using this report alone. And so we would strongly recommend that this is something that you should be doing each month. Now, within the Managed Donors module, there's lots of different kind of options inside the Managed Donors module for recording data and kind of keeping all of your data inside ExpensePlus if you want to, as a way of kind of managing your donors and contacts. If you decide to do that, which you don't have to, but if you decide to do it and you use this communications tab, this communications tab allows you to record a communications history, as in for all the different things. Maybe you phone this person, maybe you want to record a letter you sent them or an email you sent them. It also allows you to set a follow-up action, like, for example, invite this donor to our next fundraiser. If you want to use this, and you definitely don't have to, but if you want to, then the other thing you should be doing each month is coming to this donors to follow up, because this essentially is the report that's generated. It tells you about all those follow-up actions that have been set, enabling you to go, okay, great, this is the time I need to be sending that email to invite them to a fundraiser. And so this screen will just allow you to keep track of those different follow-up actions if you decide to use that ability. We're going to look at the task management module in a second, just to say that if you are VAT registered, then we haven't covered VAT, and we don't cover VAT in these training sessions. But if you are VAT registered, then obviously, again, one of your either monthly or quarterly tasks is going to be to generate your VAT submission, to check it and to submit it to HMRC, which you can do within ExpensePlus. I'm not going to cover how you do it, but obviously if you are VAT registered, then that's another kind of monthly task that you're going to want to consider. Okay, so we're going to move on to talking about the task management module in ExpensePlus and how this can be used to assign and to track tasks really efficiently. The task management module is in the top left of ExpensePlus, and you come to task management. Now, this screen links through to the dashboard. So you might have spotted this, but when I was on the dashboard, it was kind of telling me there was an overdue task and also one task that still needs to be completed this week by myself. And this will show for the different people that have access to the task management module. So the task management module is here, but it also will alert you on the dashboard. This screen has different views. So we're currently looking at this week, we're currently looking at all, and we're currently looking at in terms of the status, and we're looking at all in terms of being assigned, which is why we're seeing that the receipt check that should have happened yesterday has happened, whereas the reconciliation of transactions for this week hasn't happened. There's a little warning icon because it's a day late, and it shows that it was me. Now, I've just done the reconciliation. Great. So I'm doing well. So I can click that and tick it and tell ExpensePlus that that's done. We can see that on Friday, we've got Stan Wiggins, who is going to make the payments for this organization. So you can assign tasks to different people. You can edit tasks really easily just by clicking on this. So if actually I'm away or Bob Jones isn't going to do this, we can switch it to someone else. And so you've got the ability to do that, to kind of update the tasks that are showing. We're going to look at the tasks for a whole month then. So these are our tasks for this month. So you can also zoom out and kind of look at the monthly view, and you can see all of the different tasks that have been set up. When you set up a task, you can link it to a person, and you can link it to a screen inside ExpensePlus or an external link where you need to go and do the thing that you need to do. And so I'm going to talk in a moment about how you efficiently create tasks, but just to mention, if you want to add a one-off task, then that's really simple. You can just click add task and we can create the task. So whilst we're probably going to want to add a work-related task, you don't have to, and you don't also have to make it publicly available. So this is where visibility comes in. So visibility private means only you see it. If you don't tick that box, then everyone sees it. So if, for example, we've got, I don't know, we need to upload our accounts to the Charities Commission, that's fine. So we can just come in here and we can just add it. Maybe we don't normally do this, but we do need to do it now. So we're going to upload accounts in here to Charities Commission. We can just come and add this in here. We select a date. So we're going to say we're going to do that next Wednesday. We're not going to make it private. Everyone can see it. I'm going to do it. Provide a link. I mean, I could provide a link. I can put a link to the Charities Commission if I wanted to. I can link to a particular module inside ExpensePlus. I'm not gonna do that, and I can add some notes in here. So I can click submit. That's created the task, and then it's into the task list. Here is the task here, and so obviously that's going to be showing on the task list. Now, this module is you may or may not decide to use it. It's entirely up to you. ExpensePlus does not require that you use it. However, it is a really nifty way to kind of inside ExpensePlus to remind you of the different tasks that are needed. Obviously, it works particularly well where you have different people doing different tasks, because it allows me, for example, if Bob Jones hadn't done the receipt checking, so let's untick that, it would allow me to see that, and Bob Jones obviously can tick it off. And it's a really great way to communicate between different people as to which tasks are needed and which tasks are outstanding. And so it is a really useful module. It's a module that we plan to add more enhancements to. Let's look at though what you do when because you might be thinking, this is great, Sam, but do I really have to come and create all of these tasks each month? That would be a bit of a pain to do. And the answer is no. We've created a feature called template task sets. So if we go into manage template task sets, we've got a template task set for our monthly financial tasks. So what we've essentially done is we've created these 22 tasks that we think we're going to do every month, and your organization may have slightly less or slightly more than that. And so each month we can just say, yep, can we have another lot of those 22 tasks, and it will generate them for us. So you don't need to sit there adding tasks manually each month. You can just set up what we call a template task set. So let's have a look at this. And this is what our monthly template task set looks like. It's worth saying you can create a completely separate task set for all of your year-end tasks, and you may well want to do that, where you set up all of the 20 different things that you need to do when you come to creating year-end accounts. And again, you can assign them to different people. You can add links in for the different modules, and again, just keep track of the different tasks and whether you've done them and what still needs to be done, etc. So for our monthly one, then we've said that we want to pretend that our tasks always start on a Wednesday. You can, when you generate the task set, which you'll see me do in a moment, you can change this. And based on it being this month that we're looking at, pretending the first one was this date, then it basically generates all of the tasks here. What this means is it means that when you generate your task set, you can select the first date, and all of the tasks run off of that date, which works really, really nicely. I'll explain this a little bit more when we generate a task set in a minute. So in here we've got a weekly receipt check, which is going to happen on the first Wednesday. Stan Wiggins is going to take care of that. It's going to link him straight to the receipts module. We've got reconciliation of transactions, which again is our weekly task, and that's going to happen on the first of the month. We've then got gift aid for the prior month. Obviously, this one's only going to appear once in this list, and we're going to do that on the first Friday of each month. We're going to make payments on the first Friday of each month. We're going to review financial reports for the prior month. We're also going to check creditors and debtors for the prior month, and send our finance summary for the prior month on the first Friday. And so you can list what you're going to do. In the next week, in week 2, we're just going to do the receipt check, our reconciliation. But we're going to use that Friday this time to do our follow-up of our new donors and to contact our non-gift aided donors. And of course, we're going to make payments. On week 3, we're going to just do the receipt check, the reconciliation, and make payments. On week 4, receipt check, reconciliation, make payments. Week 5, receipt check, reconciliation, make payments. We're also going to remind ourselves that we need to deposit the cash to the bank. And so your task list might look different to this. This is a fairly good example one, which just explains, just shows the different tasks, who's going to do them, etc. And it enables the people, as they do those tasks, to mark them off in the task list that they are done. Now, when we come towards the end of this month, which obviously we're not towards the end of this month, but pretend we are, and we want to generate our tasks for November, we simply click Generate Tasks for November. We can come and set a start date. So we can set the start date as being the 5th of November. So we're going to always base it off of a Wednesday, because we always want the receipt check to be on a Wednesday, for example, and then we can generate these tasks. Now, actually, November's a slightly shorter month, so we can tell it not to generate those ones if we want, and then we just click Submit, and that's generated our tasks ready for November, and we can go again. And so essentially, when you're ready, you can generate the new task set for the next month. So hopefully that makes sense as to how you use this module. And yes, when you're in this module and you want to claim gift aid for prior month, you can just literally click on the task and that will take you to wherever it's linked to. And in this case, it's linked to the gift aid screen. So we can just drill through there. I'm going to stop, I think, at this point. So if you do have any questions, please do just pop them in the Zoom chat and I'm going to hand back over to Jack.